Hi everybody, Cardinal Timothy Dolan here, right underneath the statue of himself, our own St. Patrick, in this magnificent sanctuary, this splendid church dedicated to him, St. Patrick's Cathedral. Welcome. One of the highlights of the year here would be our Irish Heritage Concert that takes place a couple days before the Great Feast on March 17th every year. This year, it's got to be virtual, and we miss you. I sure enjoy being here in a jammed church and to see so many of you with tears in your eyes, listening to the music that you gratefully recall from your folks, your grandparents, your great-great-grandparents who look back to Ireland as their country of origin. This year we're going to do it virtually, and if I know Dr. Jennifer Pasquale, it's going to be done well. So from the comfort of your homes, you're going to be able to enjoy this magnificent Irish music. They praise the Irish, yes, for their faith, for their family, for their loyalty. They also praise the Irish for their poetry and for their music, especially in the years that they were oppressed. I won't go into that now, but during the years when they were oppressed, one of the few ways that they could express the deepest hopes, yearnings, dreams, and convictions of their heart and soul was through music, and they did it well. That was enhanced when they left Ireland. So many of the songs you'll hear tonight would come from the Irish who came here to New York, poor Irish with nothing but their faith and their memories, who built this cathedral with pennies, okay, at the cost of their sweat. They, of course, sang the songs that reminded them of Ireland. I just hope this evening you'll be inspired by that, as I always am. A blessed St. Patrick's Day.
Good evening and welcome to St. Patrick's Cathedral. My name is Dr. Jennifer Pasquale and I am Director of Music. Thank you for joining us for our annual Irish Heritage Concert. We really wish that you could be here live in person and that we would have live music, because it's wonderful when all of you are here with us together. especially during this time of year as we celebrate the solemnity of St. Patrick in the next few days. But you can still participate from home by downloading the program at www.stpatrickscathedral.org and follow along in the musical selections, read about the musicians, and sing along on the hymns. Believe it or not, people do sing from home during Mass when they participate with the programs. And you can do so as well during this concert, which we do every year in this space. Thank you for joining us this evening. We really appreciate that you've taken the time to join us. And we're going to sing a hymn, and then after that, the St. Patrick's Cathedral will sing some selections, and then I'll be back to talk to you again. But for now, please join in singing Be Thou My Vision.
For one of those Hi everybody, I'm Monsignor Ritchie, the Rector here at St. Patrick's Cathedral, welcoming you once again to this virtual concert in celebration of the feast of our patron saint, St. Patrick. All things Irish are honored at this time of the year right here in our cathedral and throughout New York City. So we're very happy that you're here. One of the ways that we're able to do this is by the support that Friends of Music have been giving us over the years. So if you would consider being a friend of music, please, you'll see some more information at the end of the concert, and please be aware of what you can do for us. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Let's enjoy the rest of the meeting.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to selections of the St. Patrick's Cathedral Choir in past performances of the Irish Heritage Concert. The next piece you're going to listen to has been produced virtually in the last couple of weeks. The choristers all sing from their own homes. We don't get together, we don't rehearse. They rehearse on their own, and then they record, and then an audio engineer pieces it all together. And so the result is this piece now. It's by John Rutter, and this is the 75th birthday of the composer this year. And so this is kind of a tribute to him, but it's also a tribute to all of you, for those who have died, for those who need peace, and especially to our healthcare workers who have worked so hard, those on the front lines. Thank you all for doing what you do to save people's lives, keeping people safe and healthy. This is John Rutter's "The Lord Bless You and Keep You," and may all of you find peace.
There were people of all ages gathered round the gable wall, poor and humble men and women, little children that you call. We are gathered here before you, and our hearts are just the same, filled with joy at such a vision, as we praise your name. Golden Rose, Queen of Ireland, all my cares and troubles cease as we kneel with
In just a few moments, we're going to listen to Dr. Mick Maloney and his wonderful musicians performing some secular tunes from Ireland. They're always great to join us every year here for this Irish Heritage Concert. We wish that we were together live, but Dr. Mick, thank you for being gracious and always being with us every year and submitting videos for our concert this year. We're always great to have you, and you're lots of fun, and so are your musicians, and you're a wealth of knowledge as well. I'm standing next to a relic of St. Patrick here at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and let us sing a hymn together before we listen to Dr. Mick. Join us in singing Christ Be Beside Me.
Mick Moloney here in the beautiful country of Thailand. In my background is a beautiful old Buddhist temple, at least 500 years old, and maybe older again than that. Last concert I did live was in St. Patrick's Cathedral just about this time last year. And very unexpectedly have been in lockdown in Thailand ever since. But delighted to accept Jennifer Pascal's invitation to do a few remote pieces of music and some songs for you this year. And we're going to start off with a beautiful old tune from the Irish harp tradition, and I will tell you all about it, and follow that by a very well-known Irish explorer in the Antarctic and a song written about him, a man called Tom Crean. And then finally we're going to finish with a song that's about the Irish and the American Civil War. Essentially, this is an anti-war song looking at the horrors of war. Pat Murphy of the Irish Brigade. Lovely to talk to you all, even if remotely, and look forward to being with you live again in the near future. All the best and happy St. Patrick's Day for all. Hello, Mick Moloney here again from Bangkok, Thailand, and it's great to be talking to you all and playing music for you all. Today on the mandolin here, I'm going to play with two great friends of mine, Athena Turgis and Billy McComiskey, a tune from the harp tradition in Ireland, a tune called Loftus Jones. Now, the harp, as many of you probably know, is the national symbol of Ireland, the official symbol, and it's found on the back of our currency. But going back to the Celtic era, and to one extent or another, we define ourselves as Celts in Ireland, along with our cousins in Scotland and Wales and Brittany and Asturias and Galicia. And we define ourselves really through a sense of peoplehood, but also through culture. and in Ireland very heavily through musical culture. The harp was the dominant instrument in Celtic society and culture as the Celts moved across Europe and ended up on the scenic perimeter of the northwest of Europe. And it was an honoured profession to be a harper, learned formally. It was our classical music for the longest time. And then the saddest period in the history of the harp in Irish culture came in the 17th century with the overthrow of the Gaelic order. And the chieftains, the Gaelic chieftains, were the patrons of the harp players. And the harp players diminished rapidly in number. And by the time it came to the 1790s, when the Belfast Harp Festival was organised by patriotic gentlemen who were members of the United Irishmen, it was organised really as a tribute to a dying musical tradition. And fortunately, a lot of the tunes were written down by a man called Edward Bunting, a church organist in Belfast at the time. And had it not been for his efforts, maybe the tradition would have essentially died out. A lot of great music was played at that Belfast Harp Festival, and a lot of it was composed by the most famous harp composer of all, Turlough O'Carlin. And Turlough O'Carlin lived at a very tempestuous time, of course, but composed a lot of music for various patrons he had in his lifetime. And he had a habit of naming his tunes Planxty and then the name of the patron, Planxty Loftus-Jones. Loftus-Jones was the son of a wealthy couple who lived in Ardenglass, County Sligo, and actually this tune, named after him, was one of the last tunes O'Carlin wrote before his death in 1738. He must have been some character to have been the inspiration for this beautiful tune. I really love it. And myself and Athena Turgis, actually, and some other musicians, had the great honour 2 years ago of playing this tune right beside Carlin's grave in County Roscommon. And the great man is buried there. Well, at least most of him is buried there. His head is missing, and some dastardly scoundrel ran off with his head. It was a fairly common thing in those times for the heads of famous people to be stolen and then sold on the marketplace to equally unscrupulous people as the head robber who took O'Carlin's head. But anyway, myself, Athena, and Billy are going to try to keep our heads as we play Loftus-Jones. And it's a beautiful tune for many reasons to many people. I'm going to hand over to Athena Turgis in Italy to say a few words to you and tell you why she likes Loftus-Jones.
Thank you, Mick. I am absolutely delighted to be here with you all in the warm virtual embrace of the New York Irish Arts Center. Being a part of this community is more important to me than ever, and I'm so very grateful to them for continuing to inspire and support us all during these difficult times. Like many Americans, my ancestors came from all over the place: Greece, Turkey, Norway, Spain, Ireland, and I grew up hearing mainly classical music, taking Suzuki violin lessons when I was young. I was 9 when I first came across Irish music, and not long after, I heard this piece we're going to play, Loftus-Jones, and my ears perked up because I was learning a concerto via Vivaldi at the time, and I could hear echoes of it in this piece. It makes sense because Turlough O'Carlin and Antonio Vivaldi lived in the same time, and good music does get around. Joining Mick and I on the accordion is the King of Brooklyn, All-Ireland accordion champion, Billy McComiskey, now living in Baltimore. He was awarded the National Heritage Award in 2016 and receives the admiration and respect of all of us lucky enough to know him.
I'm going to sing for you a song called The Ballad of Tom Crean. And it was written by a man called Cliff Wedgbury, who's originally from London, now living for many decades in Cork. I never have actually met Cliff Wedgbury, but we've been in touch remotely. And it turns out that we've nearly met many, many times over the years, going back as far as the 1960s. And I spent the late 1960s based in London with the group The Johnstons. And I was there with Lucy Johnston and Adrian Johnston and Paul Brady. And we visited many, many folk clubs and played in many folk clubs and in places like the Royal Festival Hall, in London, the Queen Elizabeth Hall, the Albert Hall, and so on. And Cliff Wedgbury often was literally around the corner, but we never actually met. Now, he wrote The Ballad of Tom Crean in 2002, and I heard it from another Cork man, the Bard of Cork, the wonderful Jimmy Crowley, and I heard him singing it along with Martine de Coycoin in America, and liked the song right away. It turns out that Tom Crean, I was to discover all this later, was born in 1877, very close to the beautiful town of Auniscall, very close to Dingle on the Kirkadivna Peninsula in southwest Ireland. Next stop is America. And Tom Crean was born into a farming family, and he was expected to be a farmer, but he didn't want to be. And at the age of 15, he announced to his father that he was going to join the Navy, and off he went. Now, he did it illegally. He was supposed to be 16. He lied about his age, and he joined the Navy. And over the next decade and a half, he worked his way up the ranks. And finally, in the year 1911, he finds himself in New Zealand and signs up with Robert Scott for 2 years on what turned out to be a very ill-fated expedition to discover the South Pole, and Scott perished in that unsuccessful quest. In the process, Tom Crean distinguished himself with countless acts of bravery and became very beloved not only of Scott but of Ernest Shackleton, who took up the quest, and his ship Endurance had extraordinary feats of valour when the ship was trapped in pack ice and eventually sank. And Tom Crean and Shackleton and many others existed in a very precarious way in the lifeboats for over 490 days. Epic voyages were taken, epic feats of valour were carried out, and Tom Crean was at the centre of all of them, became a legendary figure, a very beloved figure. Even in 1915 had a song recorded on an Edison cylinder about him. Tom Crean went on to become a very beloved figure with Ernest Shackleton. Shackleton eventually, with Raoul Amundsen, did discover the South Pole. And Shackleton had a troubled life and died in debt and very troubled. Tom Crean, however, eventually made his way back to Dingle and married a local woman and opened a pub which exists to this day called the South Pole Inn, and Jimmy Crowley has done gigs there, he tells me, very successful, as Jimmy's gigs always are. But the name Tom Crean was not celebrated much locally. First of all, he existed at a time when Ireland was in the middle of a battle for independence. And in a sense, his family was on the wrong side of that battle. He himself, of course, was in the British Navy, and an elder brother of his was a member of the Royal Irish Constabulary, eventually killed by the IRA in the battle for independence. So it appears that a kind of a shadow hung over the Crean name in some circles locally. It's a complex story. And Ireland really took a long time to come to grips with the fact that a lot of our native sons fought for the British Empire at the time that we were fighting for independence. It's a long story, and we're now at the latter end of coming to a resolution and people finally being accepted in their communities as, having made a choice that in their eyes was a valid choice. And anyway, the name Crean was not really celebrated locally by all accounts, and he himself was a very modest man, never boasted about his exploits, and his daughters say that he put his medals away and never talked about those valorous deeds that he was responsible for as one of the great Antarctic explorers of that era. But eventually, the book was written about Tom Crean, and Cliff Wedgbury wrote the song, The Ballad of Tom Crean, and now he's considered a hero, and a statue has been erected in his honour. And I'm very proud indeed to sing this song. I love the song. I learned it from Jimmy, who made some minor changes, he tells me, and Cliff totally approves of that. It's the folk process, and I think I made a couple of changes myself without even knowing it. In any case, I'm very delighted to sing the Ballad of Tom Crean, and joining me on this is the wonderful Brenda Castles from County Meath. On the concertina, the redoubtable Lucy Johnston. I'm back singing with Lucy again after 50 years of not performing together. And a special treat, John Doyle, the mighty Dublin guitar player who has really transformed the role of the guitar in Irish music. And we've been warriors together on the road for many decades, and we co-produced 4 CDs together. Always a pleasure to hang out with John, to be in his company, and especially in his musical company, one of the great musicians of our time. And he's joining us along with Lucy and with Brenda. He's joining us in North Carolina on the guitar and on vocals. The Ballad of Tom Crean. He ran away to join the Navy when he was about 15. The farmer's son from Enniscall, the brave, the young Tom Crean. It's of this unsung hero who sailed with Captain Scott on a doomed attempt to reach the pole, to find that frozen plot. It was Crean that found Scott's body, frozen where he slept. He built a cairn upon that man and said his prayers and wept. With Shackleton he bravely sailed to chart the icy waste. Upon the ship Endurance an icy hell he faced. He ran away to join the Navy when he was about 15. The farmer's son from Enniscall, the brave, the young Tom Crean. Frozen in the ocean, the vice of winter fell. He made it to the island down that glacier of hell, to tell the story of the men stranded far from home. With the whalers of South Georgia, he crossed the savage foam, to reach those men who waited for many months, I'm told, sheltering in upturned boats upon the beach so cold. He ran away to join the Navy when he was about 15. The farmer's son from Enniscall, the brave, the young Tom Crean. Eating seals and penguins, seaweed from the shore, never ever knowing if they'd see their homes once more. With Shackleton he sailed again to rescue every man, a kind and loyal friend to all this cheerful Kerry man, with the song to raise the weary and the tune to lift the sad. Always optimistic, this happy sailor lad. He ran away to join the Navy when he was about 15. The farmer's son from Enniscall, the brave, the young Tom Crean. Without the Crean boy's courage, determination too, the sirens would be wailing for that sad forsaken crew. But the James Caird made South Georgia, the mountain peaks were climbed, and soon the face of fortune smiled on the brave souls left behind. And the steamer was a wondrous sight as she ploughed the rail mother's son was saved. He ran away to join the Navy when he was about 15. The farmer's son from Enniscall, the brave, the young Tom Green. But he came home and fell in love, a local girl he wed. The South Pole in the open damned, he pulled black pints instead. The father of 3 daughters, and Mary, Kate, Eileen. Though you left this world in 38, your deeds live on, Tom Green. He ran away to join the Navy when he was about 15. The farmer's son from Enniscall, the brave, the young Tom Green. When I arrived in America in 1973, I was very fortunate to live for a few months at the house of my mentor, the wonderful folklorist Kenneth S. Goldstein. We all called him Kenny Goldstein, who was chair of the folklore department at the University of Pennsylvania. And I came to America to study folklore. I was after the big bucks, obviously. And living in his house was a folklorist's dream come true, really. He had one of the most extraordinary libraries of Americana, popular culture, mostly folklore, and songs of all kinds. And I spent countless hours in the basement of his house on Vernon Avenue in northwest Philadelphia. And I came across an inordinate number of songs about the Irish in the American Civil War. Now, I was new to America at the time and was a little puzzled by this. My knowledge of American history was a lot more limited then than it became later. But I became friends with the great late historian Dennis Clark. Became one of my best friends. And Dennis was a powerhouse of a man. He grew up in a working class neighborhood in Kensington in Philadelphia, and eventually went to Temple, got a PhD in history, and wrote The Irish in Philadelphia as his doctoral thesis, which still stands as a fantastic book to this day. Not too many people were writing much about the Irish in America at that time. Dennis ended up writing 11 books on the Irish experience in America, held down a full-time job at the time and raised a family of 6 and moved house every 4 years. And he actually was the man you would turn to if you needed something done or a helping hand. Dennis, he often says, the busiest person who has the most time. And Dennis, I was very, very sad when he finally passed away, leaving a wonderful legacy behind him. But he acquainted me with the history of the Irish at the time that the Civil War happened. And we were very unwelcome visitors in America, as many of you know, at that time. But along came the Civil War, and then the Irish immigrants, they enlisted in huge numbers on the Union Army. And through their fighting and their sacrifice for the new republic, their new home, they proved that they were Americans as well as Irish. Now, there were, of course, Irish who fought on the Confederacy side as well, mostly the people known as the Scotch-Irish who had come in earlier migrations. That was understandable that their allegiance would have been where they lived. But the most enduring legacy in song is of the Irish who fought in the Union Army. This is a song that I learned from a man called Tom Dahill in Minneapolis, St. Paul, about 30 years ago. And it's one of my favourite songs. It's very much an anti-war anthem, Pat Murphy of the Irish Brigade. Now, the Irish Brigade, there were 2 stories really leading to the Irish Brigade. One was the Fighting 69th, led by General Corcoran, a very, very feisty, controversial man who refused to parade the regiment for the Prince of Wales and was subsequently court-martialed, but very little came of it because the Civil War broke out. And then the 69th, which fought with great valour, was basically destroyed at the Battle of Bull Run, and the remnants of it, with new recruits, was formed into a unit called the Irish Brigade, commanded by Thomas Francis Maher, a very colourful and interesting character. Now, Maher was born of a well-to-do family in what's now the Granville hotel in Waterford City. I've stayed there many times and visited the room on the second floor where he was actually born. It was before that, it was the stopping off point for the stagecoach, the Bianconi stagecoach. And he and his family, they made money on the cod fishery trade, outfitting the ships and the personnel who went back and forth to Newfoundland and the cod fisheries back at that time. He was a participant he was a fervent nationalist and a participant in the 1848 rebellion, which was really a fiasco. Ireland was going through a famine at the time, and the ringleaders were rounded up, and two of them, Thomas Francis Maher and his compatriot John Mitchell, were sentenced to death, but eventually was commuted, mostly through their rich friends in America, to a life sentence in penal servitude in Tasmania. And they were shipped out there. But they both escaped. They gave their word as gentlemen that they would report to the police station and tell them, we're escaping. And the police were totally astonished. What in the name of God is going on here? But off they went. And Maher arrived to a great welcome in New York. Became a lawyer on Fifth Avenue, and eventually in the Civil War became the hero, the general of the Irish Brigade, was rewarded for his service by being given the governorship, the first governorship of the state of Montana. But on the way to take up office there, he was assassinated. His body has never been found. It's one of the great mysteries of that time. His compatriot, John Mitchell, went in an entirely other direction. He went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and became a fervent Confederate supporter, believed in slavery and the institution of slavery. And he had three sons. Two of them were killed in the Civil War. The other was wounded. Eventually became involved with the Fenian organisation and went back to Ireland. And he's known as an Irish nationalist hero. His reputation in America is much more complex. Anyway, going to sing Pat Murphy of the Irish Brigade, joined by the wonderful Hayley Richardson in North Carolina and by Brenda Castles, County Meath concertina player and singer now living in Dublin. Pat Murphy of the Irish Brigade. The night before battle, and all through the camp, the soldiers lay close in their quarters. They were thinking, no doubt, of their loved ones at home, mothers, wives, children and daughters. Far away in the east sat a dashing young blade, and a song he was singing so gaily. It was honest Pat Murphy of the Irish Brigade, and he sang of the spring of Shillelagh. One else says, Pat, what a pity to see brothers fighting in such a strange manner. But I'll fight till I die, and I'll surely be killed for America's bright starry banner. If 'twas only John Bull who was here to the fore, I would rush into battle so gaily, and I'd leather away with the heart and a half, with the elegant sprig of Shillelagh. The morning then came, and Pat he arose on the rebels to have satisfaction. The drummer was beating the devil's tattoo, calling the boys into action. And the Irish Brigade in the battle were seen, their blood for the cause shedding freely, as with bayonet charges they marched on the pole, with a shout for the land of Shillelagh. Was over, the dead lay in heaps, Pat Murphy lay bleeding and gory. The hole in his head from a rifleman's shot had ended his passion for glory. No more in the camp will his laughter be heard, or his voice singing ditties so gaily. Like a hero he died for the land of the free, far away from the land of Shillelagh. Surely Columbia
never forget, where valor and fame hold communion, how boldly those brave Irish volunteers fought in defence of the flag of the Union. And if ever old Ireland assistance does need, her call we'll heed quite gaily, and the stars and the stripes would be seen alongside of the flag of the land of Shillelagh. Far away in the east sat a dashing young blade, and the song he was singing so gaily, it was honest Pat Murphy of Maher's Brigade, and he sang of the spring of Shillelagh.
At the end of the Irish Heritage Concert every year, we sing together the national anthems of Ireland and the United States. We invite you to join in singing with us. Thank you to all of you who have joined us tonight virtually, and we hope that we're together next year in person. Thank you to the Cathedral Choir, the staff musicians here at the Cathedral, to Roberto Espinel especially for transmitting this concert, otherwise nobody would watch it. Thank you to Dr. Mick Maloney and his wonderful musicians, and to all of you for participating and watching, to our donors, to our Cathedral staff, and to the clergy for supporting us. Have a great evening, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
We
Wasn't that wonderful? The Irish heritage is something that, whether or not you're Irish, you share in during this time of the year. So I'm very glad that you were all here. I don't know how many thousands we have, but we'll find that out later. So thank you for being with us. Happy St. Patrick's Day once again, and help support the Friends of Music. God bless you all. Have a great day, everybody. Good night.
The story of New York's great cathedral mirrors the story of the city itself. Created to affirm the ascendance of religious freedom and tolerance, St. Patrick's Cathedral was built in the democratic spirit, paid for not only by several prominent New York residents, but also by the contributions of thousands of poor Catholic immigrants. St. Patrick's Cathedral proves the adage that no generation builds a cathedral. It is rather an ongoing conversation linking generations past, present, and future. As we celebrate the feast day of St. Patrick this year, what better time is there to honor that tradition and build upon what started over 162 years ago? Beginning at 12 a.m. on March 17, 2021, join the St. Patrick's Cathedral community for the inaugural Day of Giving, a 24-hour celebration of America's parish church and the power of giving back. St. Patrick's Day has always been a special day at the cathedral, and now it's even more exciting as Day of Giving is an opportunity for parishioners, virtual parishioners, longtime benefactors, and friends of St. Patrick's Cathedral to come together virtually and show support for their spiritual home. You choose where you want your gift to have an impact at the cathedral, and if 1,000 donors make a gift before 11:59 p.m., a generous donor will unlock $50,000 to support preservation of our beloved St. Patrick's Cathedral. Happy St. Patrick's Day.